Cell phone.
I love the quality of this.
Okay. Okay.
Check my notes. You can see it.
No, jetpack is on. Oh, it is.
Hello there. Let's say good evening to everyone. Thank you for coming. This is a meeting of the Communications Technology Committee, and it's nice to have a turnout like we have tonight. Thank you again. I'm John. We're going to introduce everybody. So we all know I'm John Lawrence, and I'm the chairman, and the vice chairman down at the end. We'll start with,
I am Ruben Mahart.
I'm Richard Hofsas.
I'm
And-
Max Johnstone.
and we have one member who is not here this evening, Dick Glidden. I assume he's out in the fire engine somewhere, taking care of other business, but he's usually here. Anyway, we're going to go through this tonight. I'm going to call the meeting to order and see if we have any citizens' comments to start with. Anyone wish to have any comments to make? We'll try and go through some of the details, and as we do, please raise your hands, and if we want to have you speak, if you feel like speaking up here on the microphone, that's all connected up for you. Thank you. Starting with changes to the agenda. Any changes, Max?
Nope, this was more for you guys.
Okay, thank you. The old business is Chapel Road. We'll start with Chapel Road. I'm wondering if, do you want to have speakerphone connectivity for this, Bob? For Julie?
We could, well, she said she would call me
Okay.
if
so-
she's able to shake loose.
Okay, Julie got called away for a family matter, and so she is not here this evening. But the person who's had the most recent contact with the Spectrum people is going to be Ruben. So go ahead and take over.
So we got one email response from Spectrum maybe 30 minutes ago. We've recently sent them our last round of forms to say that people want service. And basically what they said was they've got two internal groups that work on construction, and they're waiting for pricing and equipment to build out that road. That's all the data that's in the email. There's not a bulleted list of we need these pieces that cost this much, nor is there a list of items they have to be installed. So that's where we are with that email.
So can I view that as a commitment to do it this year, do you think?
I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that. That's a question we need to ask. I would like our leadership to check with Charter and make sure that this email constitutes that. Along with that, I'd like to know, can we officially say our 9-month timer has started per the franchise agreement? I'm not clear on when that begins, if that would have already begun when we sent that initial round to them, or from when they got the additional documents in April.
Okay, Bob?
I thought that 9-month clock started to tick back in November.
That may be the case. I'm asking for clarification on that
Yep,
because I'm
fair
not clear on
enough.
that myself.
Yep.
Well, I'm assuming it did, by
Okay.
the way, because that's when we produced the documents they wanted to get a commitment from the residents.
Yep.
And that's when they started their clock. And until I hear otherwise, I'm going to stick with that. And I hope the town, Julie, the town manager, and you continue working in that in mind. That means we have until the end of August before we see, or the middle of August maybe, is it? Is that when the time is up? For
Well,
the,
if you started in April.
okay, so they have until the snow flies,
Yeah.
until
what
late
we-
fall.
yeah, so that's what we need to know. If it's the original timeline like Bob said, then yeah, it should be done by August. But if these 4 new residents from Union is the new start, then it won't be possible until, I think, January 2021.
Well, that would be when the clock runs out. That wouldn't be.
They have until
Due
that
date.
time.
Yeah.
Right.
So regardless of what time period starts, there should be connectivity in this year.
Right, for those, I.
2020, I should say.
Very good, thank you, Max. And that was an oversight, by the way. I should have introduced Max. He's our town planner, and he's very much up to speed on what's going on the day-to-day with people and the the details of getting these matters solidified. So we will be keeping people informed. We might want to discuss how we do that, just a little bit for the people on Chapel, to keep them up to date as we move forward, because the way I see it, they will be starting in sometime this summer to be present on the road, putting the infrastructure in, which is consistent, adding cable. And I think they maybe have to adjust some of the existing lines on the road first in order to make room.
I've never installed any kind of cable TV or broadband system. For all the stuff we've gone over, and it's quite a lot, we've had a lot of variance in our estimated numbers. I feel like we need to, or have someone ask Charter for an ETA on installation. When do they expect this to be done or online? I think if we ask that question, that will answer everything else we want to know, all the other smaller things we've asked.
So what would be a good target date to have that kind of feedback for people on the road about this? Any stabs at it?
I don't know enough about how their construction teams work. I think we should start with asking that question and provide regular updates. If there's no answer, I will stand up and tell everyone I don't have one. We need to start asking.
Okay. And if you wish to find out more details, Max is in the office 3 days a week,
Yep.
and your schedule is going to, I guess, remain, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays? Is
Yep.
that right?
Yep.
So
Or you
that-
can send an email to planning@waldoboromaine.org and I can answer it any day.
So I have a question. Who is,
Yes.
when you say ask Charter, who is that?
Charter now owns Spectrum.
Oh, really?
They're the parent company. Yeah, they bought them out quite a while ago, actually. And they assumed ownership without any changes that they're willing to pass on to us in terms of our franchise agreement. It remains the same.
Okay, so we have a commitment from this company in writing to put cable on the roads that don't have it?
Well, I guess the in-writing commitment is not contractual in the truest sense of the word. What we have is communications from them, such as the most recent message, that shows the intent.
Okay.
I think
They're
that's.
not legally bound to do it?
Wasn't the franchise?
There actually are by the franchise agreement. And do you want to enlighten them on that?
So the short version, and if you leave your email, this is a public document. I'll send anyone a copy of the PDF that asks for it, if that's okay. The franchise agreement we have from the late 80s says that they will wire roads that have a density of 9 homes per mile or greater, if at least that many homes all agree to purchase service from them.
Okay.
It doesn't say you'll sign a contract or anything like that. One of the reasons this has taken as long as it has is that was written back in the days where all they provided was TV service. This group was pretty clever, and we said, hey, if that's all you want to provide, great, but your services are all database now. If it's phone, if it's TV, if it's internet, it's really all the same thing. They just sell you different pieces of it.
All right.
Is anyone aware of seasonal people in that area that might want connection?
I'm not sure there are any seasonal people.
Okay,
on
that's what I
Chapel.
wondered.
Well, up at the north end,
One marked down at the end on the
Oh,
north
really?
side. They
Yeah.
keep them up from
The camper,
Oh.
and they said they wanted it.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
right, the kidneys, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
The other complication that this comes up from time to time, and I feel like this is a good forum to repeat it in, this is for public roads. If you built your own private road, that's between you and Charter.
Right.
At that point, there's nothing we can do. There's no communication we have that will wire up a private road. That's up to you to purchase.
right, so this public road criteria is in the franchise agreement. Okay, I just wanted to.
Yep.
That is an overriding document in terms of what the policy is with Connect Me, by the way, isn't it?
Yeah, but that'll be a different topic we can talk about when that comes up.
Yep. So, any other questions about what's going on here?
So I just, one question, what's your sense for the residents? August, they say, we're committed, we're gonna do it. How can you hold their feet to the fire of getting us connected at that point in time? is there any obligation they have once they say, hey, we're committed to Chapel Road, but I don't know when you're gonna get a cable up there?
The closest thing I can give you, I don't have a consequence I could hand Charter. All we have in the franchise agreement is saying, hey, this road meets the density requirements, and we can give them the opportunity to turn down that much money. To be honest, the roads that qualify, we got so many surveys filled out and sent in, it's their money to lose. And, you know, this has been slow, but that last communication we had from Charter, as vague as it was, I was personally reasonably encouraged by, just based on the little bit I understand about networking and how these things go. It's not gonna be instant, these things never are. We're dealing with a massive company. But this is the best chance I've seen outside of any grants we've had to put fiber or other medium up on poles. If it were me, I'd play nice with them for at least a little while longer and see if we can get service up. And if we can't, that's beyond anything anyone here can do. But let's see if we can't get you some service first before we try and take any other steps.
Would I be correct in assuming that the companies that provide, back then, that provided the video for people, TV for people, the market was different and people wanted desperately to have that market and serve homes with television, and that perhaps because of the sparsity, or the, whatever the right word is, not as, less density in these areas, that there isn't as great a push or demand for it now,
Well,
when that was written back then.
The history of cable TV is a whole different
So-
animal.
Yeah, so that makes a difference.
I mean,
in how people look at it.
if you want some light reading, go read a book called The Master Switch. And there's a whole section that talks all about the rise of cable TV. And then it was wired cable versus the airwaves. You know, the guys that broadcast radio TV signal, they owned everything, and cable was this big up-and-coming disruptive technology. Now you're in a different part of that cycle where cable's sort of the standard thing that's there, and they're this big monolithic thing, and it's a lot harder to move. They're not disrupting anything, they're to be disrupted. And there's a lot more to it than that, so that's the closest way I could provide that answer, is to tell you to read a 500-page book, and it might inform that a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Rita Racine, and I live on Chapel Road. I think cable is, I don't know, I think they're just being slow with us because we're a little bit of a road and not a big, big road with a lot of houses. Because 19 years ago, when cable was, whatever its name was, when I moved onto the road, I called cable to see if they were going to put cable on our road. And the answer I remember, maybe not verbatim, but we didn't have enough houses on the road. And if they could put cable down, if the town paid a fair share of it, but the town didn't want to do it. But I should call back because something might be in the works. Well, I called back and got no answer, and then I called back 3 years later, and I still got the runaround that we weren't populated enough, and the town wasn't making a commitment to pay any of it. Finally, I gave up and got DirecTV, because, and that was back when it was video, when it was only TV. Well, now, it's more important than just TV. I mean, our lives depend, I hate to say it, but depends on the technology that we would be able to get from having, this set up on our road. I know so many of the things that I have to deal with in my own home world, my home life. In order to get anywhere, I have to use the internet. And, I don't have unlimited internet. I have to pay for every, and probably everyone else does too. And, that in itself gets pretty expensive. Or I have to go to Rockland or somewhere and pay Wi-Fi to find out what my doctor's report is. And that's ridiculous. We shouldn't have to do that. Especially when I saw something very disconcerting to me, and it's not on the wall anymore, but the map of where the internet service was provided. There was one Chapel Road, everybody around us had it, but not Chapel Road. And what disconcerts me about that is, I pay my taxes, and I would like to have something there to say that my taxes are being used for something that, my family would like to have. So I just really wish there could be, I don't know, Ruben, but you said that if they don't follow through, there's no option, we don't have any alternative.
So that's the part where I'm not a lawyer, and I can talk to you about the technical pieces of that all day. I can tell you what the requirements are. I don't know how we would handle, if they came in and we were able to say, hey, we met all your requirements and you still did nothing. I would think something has to be done with that. I can't tell you what that thing would be. That would trigger
But the
another series.
The town would make an attempt to get them to, pay attention to us and.
Bob, you have your hand up if you had a response to
Yeah,
that.
I do have a response to make to that. The franchise agreement is a density of 9 per mile. And it wasn't until this committee was formed
Right.
that we really began to make progress getting the village lit up, getting the Old Augusta Road lit up. I mean, we've had a lot done in the time the committee's been in existence. And we've gone down the road with charter. It's like pulling teeth. As Ruben says, they're huge. But they have been responsive. They answered you today. Do you mind reading that again, Ruben, exactly
Yeah,
what they
sure.
said?
Just to preface, I don't understand every name of every group at Charter. Like, I don't know what the hub group is.
Is that
They
from-
said.
From Shelley?
This is from Shelley,
Okay.
Wichita, yeah. The last internal update I was copied on was from our hub group to our construction group. Construction was waiting on quotes for head-end gear so they could submit the cost for the project. I've copied our director of field ops in this email, perhaps he's done a recent update. And the person she copied hasn't responded, though I don't even know what that person's hours would be. I will be watching this very closely and with interest. So I would like all of you to have, fast internet's good for the town, and it's something we need to get to every single home.
So what was the first group on that list? It was before the hub group?
The hub group and then the field ops guy.
Those are the, before that, was there another? I didn't quite catch.
No, it just said the last internal update I was copied on was from our hub group to our
Okay.
construction
The
group.
hub group is an overseer of the overall network, and they do the planning, engineering planning, and then they turn it over to the field engineers to do the actual build-out specifications in detail, and then they take all that information and with a team to go out there to build it.
Just to continue, I think it's fair to say, given where we are now with them, that this is gonna be done.
Right.
It's not a matter of whether, it's a matter of when. And hopefully, the sooner the better.
Right.
This represents a lot of homes. This represents something, I think we piqued their interest. We're able to show them enough people that would like to give them money
Yeah,
and get
There's like
service.
22 people now, right?
There's 22 or 23 if you
Yeah.
count the ones around the corner.
On Union.
Right, and that means on Union Road going towards Kastner, I believe. There's a little block of homes there that are connected onto the chapel distance that brings the number up higher in a very short amount of distance.
Yeah.
I
So,
think it was a hand in the back.
yes,
Does the Public Utilities Commission have any control over the agreement?
no. And the reason for that, and I've heard this from the advocate's office, we have a franchise agreement, the town does. And because of the fact that we have our own agreement with the provider, separate from the public utility structure, we are on our own to deal with them.
That agreement, by the way, we're actually incredibly lucky. So if you are a brand-new town, let's say Bob buys a town, builds a bunch of houses. A vanilla franchise agreement from Charter is 25 homes per mile before they'll look at wiring your road. If you read the news from other surrounding towns where they've paid someone to negotiate with Charter, they've gotten a really good deal and gotten down to 15. the fact that we have an agreement that is for 9 homes per mile, I haven't found a lower one in the state, and I've been looking. One of the reasons we told them we didn't want to talk about anything else was because we wanted to hold that number. That's also why, when we looked at the terms in there, we said, no, we want to do what we can under this agreement before we change anything else. So sometimes people will get stuck in the idea that they need a new franchise agreement before they can get new service, which you would think would make sense, except there's no expiration date on this agreement. It's not like a cell phone or a satellite. So we're better, in my humble, non-legal opinion, to not breathe on that until we do everything we can with it. There's nothing to be gained. They don't offer you amazing new pricing or amazing services you can't get under a new agreement. That's not how any of that stuff works.
Okay, thank you, Ruben. Anything else they would like to add? Yes?
So, Ruben, from listening to what you have said, and I've been on the phone quite a bit today, I guess Max has
Yes.
probably gotten a little wind of me calling the governor's office, and I've been pretty frustrated, partly because I don't have the expertise that you all do, and I'm looking at it from a practical standpoint, how it's affecting my family, my profession, etc., and some of the younger families on the road that have children, and another lady who works under Maine Health up in Belfast with PET scanning, and how she gets calls and she doesn't even have reliable phone service. And so when I see that going on in our town, where probably 95%, I would say, of the people have at least one option, some have 2 options for connectivity, I've been fairly frustrated. So I have been like racking my brain on the internet, calling anybody that I thought could offer us some support in where is this going, because this franchise agreement has been in place for a fair amount of time. So it's not like they've just been handed this and now they need lots more time to figure out how they're gonna accomplish it. And if the clock started back in November, when we were asked to jump through this hoop to go out and get all these names, and then that we waited, we sat on that for several months, and then all of a sudden back, it was the end of March, 1st of April, oh, we need now for you to get down and get these other 4 names on 235, which we did. We sat on that, no feedback from them, and all the while, we were told way back last fall that we would, August 22nd, now we don't even really know now where the new set date is. And it's a little bit frustrating and disconcerting, because now do we have a plan B? It seems like this is pretty fluid, and maybe if at whim they decide, you know what, we're not gonna do this, or we're gonna string this out another 2 or 3 years, what plan B do we have on Chapel Road to get on the grant, the Connect Me? I've talked to Max about that. What options are we gonna have, and who is gonna advocate for Chapel Road? Or as a town, are we just gonna look at, well, you know what? We took the project on, it was 95% complete, and we're gonna call that a success and let it go. As long as we're not out there, knocking on the door, hey guys, what's going on for us, what's going on for us? And I just feel a little not sure with this, where this is gonna go, because it doesn't really seem really solid to me right now that yes, this is gonna go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, Robin. We really appreciate having community involvement to help us move ourselves forward, and all the work that you've done to help us is duly noted, and we would like to continue, if you have the time, to help us keep the focus for them, on your sake in the end, and thank you.
As to the rest of your question, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you to not be frustrated that everything's okay. I'm also not gonna tell you that we have any intention of calling 95% done. 95% is not a completed number. Broadband's as important as electricity or telephony at this point. Everything rides on it, and the old stuff's, eventually gonna go away. Copper telephone lines, that's a 100-year-old tech that's going to go away.
Until everybody is connected in this town, we're not done. And that
Okay, well, I
means,
just wanna, I like, that gives me comfort to know that that
Right.
is your mindset on this, and I think Ruben, we work under the same
Yeah.
professional umbrella, and you can see the position that myself and this other person, and there may be others, that our reliability to our profession is critical to having this.
Yeah.
And, you know, when we are committed, I'm a sixth generation to this town, and my family has given a lot to this town, and I wanna stay here, but it's very frustrating if my job is being impacted and my ability to keep up my professional credentials is being impacted by not having this, and I cannot rely on a telephone to accomplish that, or run down and sit in the library parking lot to accomplish that. And it's great that people that have it, now maybe you take it for granted, but the rest of us don't.
You don't have to go very far. It's, you know, anytime I'm somewhere where I don't have broadband, the amount of connectivity I rely on to do very simple things at home. Even if I go to if I'm at a Starbucks and the Wi-Fi's down, whole day ruined. I'm an absolute child about it.
And that's great, but after you've worked all day, you don't wanna have to rely on that. And I think this gentleman here, his mom just went through getting her bachelor's degree. She works at the Green Thumb.
It was a very big struggle for her with this going on. She's been fighting this for a long time. She started a petition, Colleen B. Hill. She started a petition and got so many names signed, and we've been trying and calling Spectrum, and, you know, before then it was Time Warner, and, you know, I mean, we've gone through hoops and been trying for her since I was little.
And I give her, I mean, she was working and then going down to URock to use computer access to help get her educational degree, to kind of lift her up, and I give the lady credit because it was a tremendous hardship, and there are other people, whether they're trying to do a home business out there, young children, I know not everyone agrees, but like it or not, the schools are they're requiring kids to have that. When my son, who's 28, was in junior high, we had computer access to teacher conferences, grades, projects coming up, and that was over, how old are you, you know, 14, 15 years ago. And so it's more critical
It was even a
today.
struggle for my little brother. He just joined the Air Force, and I honestly think a big part of it was because he was just so frustrated at being in the dark. I mean, he wanted to serve his country as well, but he just was so fed up with it all through high school, and, you know, he struggled with it with everything, you know, and he was a very tech savvy young man, but.
Anyways, we appreciate the work you're all doing, but I hope you can appreciate where we're sitting after this long push
Absolutely.
with all this. It's,
yeah.
And let's not discount the work you
Well,
folks are
there's
doing.
only one other suggestion I have is if you get, because you've made so many contacts in the state,
Her boyfriend, there's four in just
Yep.
my family that are right there, you know, that.
since you've made so many great contacts, Robin, we would really appreciate it if you could share whatever you hear from feedback with Max so that he can make it more part of giving us a better understanding of where we really are, and having another, since we spent so many years trying to get Chapel Roads connected, this last push will get us over the line, is my hope, and we do it this year. And so that's the optimistic look that I'm trying to amplify here with you, because of people like you that have spent the time pushing from the other end. Yes, Bob?
I just wanna reiterate, we're not giving up. I mean, and I don't think it's highly possible that this is not gonna work. I think it's gonna work. But if it doesn't work, there will be a plan B. But let's get plan A put away. I think we
Right.
will.
We actually have a Plan B and a C, by the way.
Yeah. But let's play our cards. Let's play the hand
so
we
as
have.
long as guess Max isn't gonna get frustrated with me calling to check in to see how things are going, because that's how I operate and that's how I work, because I'm always working under accountability and,
Well, the calls are what we need to constantly keep telling Charter. People on Chapel are still being anxious. We want to know all this information, and now we finally have at least. I think this was the fastest reply we ever got, actually, because you sent that email, what, an hour ago?
It took about 20 minutes
For them to
from
reply?
send to receive.
Yeah.
That's quite astounding.
maybe
Yeah.
Martha in the governor's office had something to do with that. That's why the conversation today.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes those contacts like you've been making, we never really figure out how they got back around, but they do. And we really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else before we move on to the next detail that we have to deal with, another unserved area with a different set of circumstances?
Who unserved areas?
Anything else on the Chapel Road? Well, thank you for coming. So now what we're going to do is move on to the new business, which is trying to secure another Connect Me grant. And that is to fill in a small group of people that have been left out because of their physical details of where they are relative to where the fiber cable went in by our fiber provider, LCI. And we are trying to finish that in North Waldoboro by getting these people on the periphery.
On Flanders Corner, the southern half of Flanders
Right.
Corner, and all of Store Mountain Road.
So why don't you go ahead and pick up the ball and give us the latest on your efforts today that took place to try and get some information.
So a summary for those who are interested. This has been something we've been trying to work with LCI for the grant since I think December, January, because the grant we initially thought was going to be announced in February. Speaking with LCI, it would cost about just over $50,000 to get both roads connected, which was going to be a bit of a hassle. We're going for initially we were planning on a 50% grant, so $25,200 would be paid by Connect Maine, and then the other $25,200 would be paid by LCI. LCI is doing about 2 other towns right now, so they've said that their resources are a bit strained this time. The grants that LCI are going for, this is more town-wide, more denser projects. And so for this one, they're willing to do the full 50% amount, but at shifting some of the return of investment to the residents on these 2 roads. And the figure I got back from Alan Hinsey, who is the Director of Marketing for LCI, said that for a 3-year contract, residents would be paying $90 a month, plus tax and the one-time installation fee.
Is that just for internet, Max?
That
or
is just for internet,
Just for internet.
50 download speeds, 10 upload.
50.
50
Why
download.
isn't it symmetrical?
Not.
It's so, it is,
I can answer that.
yeah, go ahead.
So that's really born of competition. They're matching the upload speeds of what Charter will do at less money than what Charter will do.
Apples to apples.
Close. Their download speed's about half on that plan. So their 50 by 10 is, I think 50 a month, or no, 90 a month.
It's
They have so many different pricing
It's
plans.
$50 for the minimum, but the
It is-
40 is just to make
Right,
up all the costs.
Right.
Yeah.
50 by 10 on fiber, you're gonna be reasonably happy. The thing about any kind of fiber connection is the number they get you, it's gonna be that number. Charter does a great job, that's who I have. And I usually see that speed, but, you know, they don't say it's always this speed, it's an up to situation usually. And that depends, you know, check on their websites, read about their product, that could change today.
And
Anything over fiber is gonna be a good quality product, and LCI doesn't mess around.
They have better synchronization and lower latency, the delay between when you send out or get, if you're connecting back and forth, it's a better median for high-speed connectivity.
What does the
And-
minimal plan offer for megabytes per second?
So it's measured in megabits, so
Yep.
that's that 50 by 10. It's 50 megabits per second down and 10 up on that minimum span. Their second tier is 100 by 20.
Fast, that's,
Yeah.
I mean, I know a little bit about, that's screaming fast, yeah.
Oh, yeah, if you were streaming a 4K, let's say you're gonna watch Game of Thrones, I think that's what the kids are into these days, whatever they're into.
Not after,
Highest
not after that
resolution-
finale.
Huh?
Not after that finale.
Oh, okay. I didn't mean to start a fight. At any rate, a really high-end 4K stream is 20 to 25 megabits if you have a crystal clear picture streaming on the internet.
Right.
So you'd have to do that twice and then back up all the photos on your phone before you notice the speed difference.
Yeah.
Just to give you something that approaches a real-world example. And most people don't run content at that. Stuff's always gonna get bigger and faster and shinier. Most people are running content that's a quarter of that resolution. Netflix is almost all a quarter of that.
Yeah, and it's not everyone's gonna be running
Right.
ultra
So-
4K TV.
Right, and that's just the average thing that I know about.
So I think what we need to do is focus on the
Well-
business relationship being proposed.
And I'm sorry if I can just finish off what I was gonna say. This whole grant is based on the assumption that we are able to get all residents on these two roads to commit to these contracts. That is the key thing.
That's called 100% take rate.
100% support, because that is something LCI kind of wants to see now from towns, more than, if there's not a massive density of over 50 people or 100 people, they want to see a lot of commitment from these people. And especially with the Connect Main scoring system, if we did not get at least 85% of support from the people who could get this, there's no chance we'd get it.
And the way this is structured in their proposal to the town, correct
Yep.
me if I'm wrong, but I believe they want commitments
Yep.
before they'll start the build-out.
Yep.
And there will be a signed contract,
2 years probably, usually most.
3 year.
do
3 years.
3 years.
contract.
Right. And that has also to do with the payout. That has to be made by these participants, subscribers, to pay the provider back
Yep.
the infrastructure installation fee, their portion. And that's all spelled out in the grant. And then after that's done, then it drops back to the standard.
Which would be 50, or who knows, maybe even less than 3 years.
But, I'm sorry, could you say that a little more clearly? Because I didn't
So,
like.
once the 90 is done for 3 years, then it'll go down to the basic plan of 50, or it could be less, who knows what it'll be in 3 years.
Right.
Or anyone who, if you want more than just the 50 by 10, you can certainly
Right,
do more.
that's not an individual.
Yeah.
But looking back at an email back on the 9th,
Yep.
or 7th, I guess, from Alan Inslee, what you just said is different from what was originally
What we
given
initially
to us.
thought.
So clarify that, are you saying that the 50,400 Connect Me would pay, at least in theory, 25,200?
Yep.
And then LCI's biting off on the other 25,200, and then we're gonna divvy that number up over a 3-year commitment.
Yep.
So 50 plus 40, whatever, 45, essentially with taxes. So you're looking at $95 per month.
Alan told me, and I sent him a letter that he has to sign before it goes to residents. The number will be $90, and he said plus tax. I need him to clarify what that tax number is.
Right.
So I assume it's 7%, that's usually what's
Right,
usual
so it's
thing.
around $96,
So maybe it's
$95.
Plus the one-time installation fee of $100, depending on how far you live from the road.
So if you're up to 200, is it?
It's up to 250 feet from the road.
Right, is included in that price.
Yep.
Anything above that, then you pay.
$1 per foot.
$1 a foot.
Most
For
of
that
my
medium-
neighbors is paying like 150 now for their service, so, I think
You
they'd
should-
be happy with 90.
Yeah, you should call them to see if there's any chance of changing the download/upload speed. I did that very recently. As soon as I heard they do 50/10 for the same price, I'm paying for 30/30 now.
Well, I'm on Chapel Road, so.
I am sorry.
So the framework for this agreement is all up front in terms of commitment by all the people in these two pockets. I call them pockets, though. And they have to make this kind of a commitment. And it also includes adding some poles, too.
2 for Flanders Corner.
2. That's what they ended up estimating, 2 rather than 3. Well, it doesn't matter the
Maybe
details,
it's 3.
but we'll work it out. So anyway, then when this is all done, the subscribers will be happily receiving this internet connectivity from which they can get all their internet normal interaction for browsing or emails or also for video. And the new trend, of course, is to use this type of video for high-speed connectivity. And streaming is what it's referred to by many, even the, and that will be the way the fiber will work. And you will not necessarily have to be hooked to a provider. You can use a, what's it called, Marcia? What is the
You mean like a Roku or?
Roku? And you can stream all your video.
So the basic cable package won't be coming with it, this is just the basic, this is
Just internet.
This
Right.
is the data pipe. You can layer anything on top of this you want. So you hear commercials for Hulu.
But they are not providing IPTV or IP phone for that. Right.
2 different.
Yes,
I guess-
Yeah,
Bob?
I just want to point out, it was a traumatic experience for us to cut the cable, but we finally did. We don't get cable TV anymore, we haven't gotten it for over a year now.
Okay,
And
I mean,
anything-
I'm on board with all the
Anything we want
stuff
to
that
watch,
you're
we can
saying.
stream,
Right.
either through Roku or Apple TV or one of the other services.
I mean, you can even get Spectrum on
Most smart TVs
that.
have the
Yeah.
stuff built right into them.
And you do pay a monthly fee for, say, YouTube TV, maybe $40 or $45 a month for that. But that's about all you need.
So the biggest long pole in the tent with this special proposal from our provider is the fact that we have to have 100% participation with a signed agreement up front, which is pretty steep in terms of what I think, but because you can't go from, go 100 down to say maybe half of the people, because then they're gonna, then they will have to pay even more.
Yeah.
And then the people that are on that road, that want it later on, say, yeah, can you just hook me up? And that's not fair either.
No.
So this is an all or nothing deal that is just because of the fact that it's a small pocket group situation.
Kind of question.
Yeah, it just, are the 2 roads bundled or are they 2 separate grant applications?
Bundled.
So
Because
if we don't get everybody on Storer, then Flanders doesn't get it, and if you don't get everyone on Flanders, then Storer doesn't get it.
I can evaluate what the prices would be for the 2, assuming it's split down the middle, it's still gonna be, it's still not gonna be favorable for
And so,
scoring.
there's another thing I should mention, is this particular situation that we have in this town is because we have so many people already connected compared to other towns. Every town, as they roll out the fiber, you know, their high-speed connectivity is gonna end up with pockets like this. It's inevitable. And I've been an advocate for trying to get the state to address this in their Connect Me grant program, to have some kind of a special grant arrangement for these people that are caught in this situation, because it's untenable to deal with some of the details here, unless we have someone like Jim Letney who's gonna be able to get everybody to do that.
We've been caught in a pocket on Chapel for 20 years.
Yeah.
30 years, yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about, you know, just a few people within a mile here. We're not talking about 20, like on Chapel. We're talking about a very small group of people. So, anyway, so where do we go from here in your mind, Max?
Well, I am supposed to get something from Alan Hinsey. It was supposed to be today. Unfortunately, I don't have anything right now. So I'm going to keep bothering him tomorrow until he picks up the phone. Once I do get that, I'll have a signed document from him stating, this is LCI's final number, this is how it's broken down. If we get the Connect Main grant, this is the price you'd be paying for 3 years. If we don't get the Connect Main grant, then we'll come back with a different price another time. That'll be that. Then there will be a separate document for just a sort of just a statement saying that the residents would want this service for the $90 that is outlined in that letter. And if the Connect Main grant you don't get the Connect Main grant, then it can be null and void in case they try to say, well, we'll still do it, but it's gonna cost you $110 a month, and you don't want that.
So the question I have is, what's the deadline for having all this done?
This entire grant is due on June 12th.
Right. And there's gonna be no extension, you found out today.
No extension. I'm also gonna check with Alan on possibly adding another road, possibly, but I'm not, that's a 1% outlier right there that I,
Right, understand. So we're gonna have to just move ahead and get people to say yay or nay, or whether they're willing to make these kinds of commitments.
and on that hypothetical that you mentioned, if one road shows no commitment but the other does, I'll talk with Alan again, try and rework some numbers, see if there is a way to do it, but assuming, let's take that 50,000, split that in half, and it's 25,000. That's then 12,500 we get from Connect Main, and that's the remaining amount that we have to get. The figure might be on the same, possibly. That's why I have to talk to Alan about, because I think one road was more expensive than the other to do. But I don't
Store
know.
Mountain
Yeah,
would have
our-
been more money.
I think Store Mountain was a bit more because
It's a longer distance?
there's a longer distance, and the way the road is structured, or the poles are structured, you'd have to do a lot more, whereas Flanders, once the 2 poles are done, that's pretty much it.
But they have make-ready on the existing poles.
Yep.
To redo the spacing.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I
So,
have to check about.
So as soon as I get an offer sheet, I'll walk around to my neighbors and ask them, but
Yeah, it would be,
I can't do that until I know how much
Yep.
it's gonna cost.
and that's why I'm also asking about how much that tax is exactly, because I feel that's the first question people are gonna ask. And I do want you to have a definitive number there.
Well, the thing that I see happening with our situation is that some of us already have satellite.
Yeah.
Once Red Zone went belly up, or their service was terrible, you have to have alternatives. So, what's the carrot to go to fiber, and how can we save them money? Either through television? Somehow there has to be worth them to bite the bullet. Some of us are in contract already for satellite for a couple of years. There's a lot of ancillary details that need to be
looked upon
Looked
when they,
upon.
yeah, when they look at this versus their other, so.
how can we rationalize fiber? I mean, everyone that has it loves it. But what can we do? Well, if you have fiber, then you don't have to worry about,
X, Y, and Z.
Dish TV or whatever. Those types of things, those types of rationale could prove very beneficial. And watch their number, from $150 for a couple different setups to 90 or $100, whatever.
Right.
So, and I'm not a technocrat by any means.
Well, very good. Well, I really appreciate you doing the effort to try and pull this together for your 2
Store.
groups of people, Store and south end of Flanders Corner. And I don't know what else we can do, but this is gonna be like a go, no-go kind of.
Yeah.
And
we're gonna-
so we'll have to stay close on this to see how we're doing with this. And by the end of this week, we're gonna be either no or go. So,
Yeah. Fortunately, I spoke with Brooke Johnson, who works at the Connect Maine Authority. She said that if there is a certain amount of money sometime in November, we could get a bonus round like we saw last year. So that can be, I almost want to say this is kind of the plan B in case.
For those two pockets.
so
I was also going to say
Oh, including
Chapel,
Chapel, yep.
because if
they don't come through,
the August day comes and goes, then you guys will be right there for the Connect Maine grant. And
we'll have to keep our eye on this one closely.
I'd rather have fiber.
But on the other hand,
but if we don't, we don't get that certain amount, then
yeah.
The-
So
then
the
the
risk,
next round
the
will
risk is,
have-
will there be enough money in a pool at that time to make it a viable
so
grant possibility in November?
it's,
We don't know, we won't know that till
and if
later
we
on.
don't, and if we don't get that amount of money from Connect Maine, then the next round will be January, February of next year. The reason why I had to wait so long was because they got a new executive director, which is why it kicked the can about halfway into the year. Yeah, so that's.
And also, the other thing that's going on is a lot of talk about more money available for broadband expansion in the state. Did you hear any numbers today?
I heard some numbers, and that's actually why whether we'll get a second round is going to be up in the air, because there's 2 bond issues, I believe,
Yep.
coming to the polls for more broadband initiatives. They also had to put some money to the side for a USDA grant, and depending on how some of those towns that they were filing it for apply, if those towns don't follow through, that's the money that would go back to the Connect Maine, and that's the money that could end up.
So they
being
have
put to us.
USDA set aside now?
Yes.
It's occupying part of the budget for the year.
Yep.
So-
I think they had like 850 total for the year.
Yep,
700 was going to be for Connect Maine.
okay,
The rest was put to USDA.
okay, 150.
So now they're seeing how that money goes.
So there's a lot of details associated with this, and they meet, and they have an authority that meets once a month,
Fourth Friday?
fourth Friday, the last Friday of the month.
Yep.
And we try and attend those meetings and keep track of the details because these things pop up. So we'll keep you posted. In the meantime, please see that, let us know how we do with getting our responses you need in order to have a package with which to decide whether you're gonna do it in your neighborhood. Thank you.
The moment I have the signed thing from Alan, I'll make sure to send a copy to both of you two, as well as I do have your email right here, and I won't say since we're recording. And I'll send you the letter, I'll send you the contract. I have them done for individual people, just so, but if you want to do one whole sheet for the road, I can do that as well. Just need you guys to say whether or not. That's it, that's all I have.
Anything else? Thank you all for coming.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay?
Keep squeaking.
I think we technically need that. Motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
So anyway,
Chapel, what we're working on right now.
if I can help you up there.